All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Recovery First podcast. I'm your host, Mike Todd. We are live at the Askham Studios in Greenville, South Carolina. It has been a hot Greenville, South Carolina. It's definitely the dog days of August. Tonight's show is brought to you by the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association. They have gotten out a little over 850 plus naloxone kits to housing and recovery housing statewide in South Carolina, including 9 reported overdose reversals. A little bit about Freedom Recovery Center and the Recovery First program. It's an initiative and community program in Greenville, South Carolina, supporting those who suffer from substance use disorder by providing access to treatment, recovery services, and permanent housing. All right, it's August, overdose awareness. And then, of course, we roll into recovery month in September. Just exciting time to be alive if you're in recovery. But so we have some local events coming up. One is the second annual Jessica's Walk for Overdose. It will be Friday, August 27th. We will meet at Pizza Bergamo in downtown Greenville and walk to Falls Park. I'll be there again with my bullhorn getting real loud. Last year we had about 100 people, maybe more, and I think we're going to have more this year. And we want to give a special shout out and thank you to the Step family for organizing this event. Favor Grand Strand, our friends across the state, Favor Grand Strand, shout out to Nicole, Chris. They'll have a memorial vigil August 31st at 6:30 p.m. in Conway, South Carolina at Collins Park. We'll keep you posted on that one. And then Favor Mini Golf is Sunday, August 15th at 6 p.m. For more details, contact our good friend Michael Crouch or Lee Huckins with Favor Oconee County. I think Lee is with Favor Anderson. But you can see the number up there. It's 864-280-5579. The Catawba Nation will be having a recovery event in September. Of course, again, that's Recovery Month. And it is the Catawba River Ramble for Recovery. It's going to be on September 11th. It starts at 8 a.m. and it's going to be a kayak race. I'm going to try to make that. I also want to shout out to all the recovery warriors with the Catawba Nation. The Jesse May Harm Reduction Bus will be in the old Save More parking lot off Wade Hampton. That's in the the Motel 6 area from 5 to 7 on Friday. They will be out there giving out naloxone, clean syringes, and spreading love, dignity, and the message of recovery to all throughout the community. We want to let you know about this too. This is kind of new news. They'll also be at New Life Church in Berea on Thursdays from 7 to 9. We'll get you some more information. Maybe we'll do a live remote out there, but we'll keep you posted on that one too. The Upstate Recovery Coalition will be hosting a recovery festival and concert at the Charles E. Shipman Center in Greenville. That's on Sunday, September 26th, 3 to 7 p.m. We're going to be celebrating Recovery Month in Greenville. I think that's the first Recovery Month celebration in Greenville, South Carolina, so we're excited about that. It's going to be on 975 Foothills Road. And, of course, as usual, we'll keep you informed about that. So, without further ado, we are here with my good friend Marc Burrows with Challanges Inc. Are you there, Marc? Hey, Marc, I was hoping you didn't leave again. I was like, is he there? Because just to let everybody know, he was trying to get the bus cranked up.
Yeah.
So he's been like running in and out, and I know Chris Stepp was by there. So
yeah. So yeah,
you didn't dip out on me.
No, and thanks for having me, Mike. And so Chris just came over to pick up the bus to go do this church event. And the freaking bus wouldn't start. The battery was dead. So we had to push the bus to the end of the driveway, which, you can imagine pushing a school bus. Needless to say, he took off in his car with all the supplies. So
that's okay. And we were talking about that earlier in the events that, listen, I got to say this, and we all love Chris Stepp, and shout out that he just had his little. It was we're proud of him. He was just in the newspaper, kind of like some Greenville.
Community hero.
Community hero, man. But here's the thing, man. I'm excited because that bus is headed to a Baptist church over there off of Greenville, and so shout out to Pastor Ronnie out there for letting us come out there and do that. I mean,
how huge is that? At a Baptist church?
You better believe it. It is huge. What's the T-shirt you got on? Just show us your T-shirt real quick. No more war on drugs.
No more drug war, baby.
No more drug war. So love that T-shirt. I saw it before you came on, and
thank you. Drug Policy Alliance. You guys should check them out. Drugpolicyalliance.org or DPA.org. Yeah.
Let us know, man. Stuff. We'll start blazing that over the screen there. And man, it is good to have you. We talk about you I know your ears are burning like every Thursday, but Marc, I'm so proud to be a friend of yours, and just really, really proud to be a little part of this as Todd's putting the bus down there. And you know what, the picture in the middle of you sitting on the hood on the trunk of your car, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, just kind of tell me, if you would, just a little bit about where Marc Burrows grew up and what it was, just kind of a little bit about yourself growing up and where you grew up.
Yeah, for sure. And before I get into that, I do want to say congratulations on being a top 15 addiction, recovery related podcast. That's a pretty big deal, man. So
number 11, man. And we're
number 11.
And we're kind of new. It really is.
Representing Greenville. I like it.
Representing Greenville.
South Carolina.
You know what, man? We're going to be representing the recovery community in South Carolina, the recovery community at large, man. But yeah, tell us a little bit about where Marc Burrows grew up. Is it Greenville?
No. Well, surprisingly, half of it was in Greenville. So I grew up, I was raised in New Jersey, northeast New Jersey, 45 minutes from the city. And I actually did live in Greenville for half my childhood. And then we moved back up to New Jersey. But, I had a pretty typical, like, white guy, middle class family, like 2 loving parents, 2 siblings. Great neighborhood, lots of kids, lots of sports, played outside in the woods 24/7, played hockey on the lake when it would freeze in the winter. So that was my sport. And, not much to complain about. My family did suffer a tragedy when I was 9 years old. My middle sibling, there's 3 of us, the middle child, my older sister, was killed in a car accident. When I was 9 years old, and she was killed by a drunk driver. And actually that happened here in Greenville on Verde Boulevard, right across the street from the Embassy Suites Hotel. So if anyone's in the area, and that was 1995. And I believe 5 people died in that car accident, 4 of which were high school students. So it made a lot of noise. A lot of people knew about it. It got a lot of attention in the news. And so needless to say, that is where things took a dark turn in my life and my family's life as well. So, after that, that's what led to the drugs, and the rest is history,
Yeah, I mean, it's drug our drug use and addiction, it all pretty much sounds the same, and I get that, and I know you've shared that with me about losing your sister and stuff, and man, I couldn't imagine.
Well, man. It's when you're a 9, 10-year-old kid, you don't know how to cope. You don't know what grieving is. Your friends can't relate to you, right? Like you don't have a 10-year-old friend like patting you on the back, giving you advice, So, so you kind of like, for me, I just shut down emotionally. I went numb. Life like became gray, like black and white. Like I always say, like the color got sucked out of life, and you just start to find ways to adapt. And for me, that was causing, getting into trouble, causing mischief around the neighborhood, and experimenting with drug use.
Yeah, and then obviously, no secret, you found opioids, right? And that's
yeah. So at the age of 17, experimenting with harder drugs, and had got around a certain crowd of people, and started using heroin, started injecting heroin, started injecting cocaine, and my I went like very hard in the paint, as we would say, for drug use, became very reckless and careless, and had a very, very desperate story of addiction, like many of us, and went to 13 treatment centers in a 2-year period, went in and out of jail a couple times, had a criminal arrest record the length of my arm, just, the whole nine. So,
and Marc, as you talk about that, for a lot of us, it started with trauma. I mean, it really did. It was like something in that trauma for me, like disconnected. And I was just looking for, like, I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to, heck, I wanted to sleep. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, or I didn't want to sleep, or I don't know what it was, but it's like when you start sitting down and talking to a lot of people who suffer from substance use disorder, it really, the trauma is really, and of course some people go through trauma and they don't go through that. I get that, but it's amazing how much trauma is connected to what we went through. So yeah,
it is. It really is. And the thing to remember is everyone has a different definition of trauma. Like what's traumatic to one person may not really be too much of a big deal for another person. Maybe something like a divorce, or a parent's job loss, or I don't know. There's a lot of things that can affect people differently. But the other key thing is, oftentimes in the addiction treatment field, we skip right over the trauma. Like we don't even talk about trauma. We don't acknowledge, like even though it's probably the root cause of that person's situation, we don't spend a lot of time focusing on that, which is unusual.
Amazing. And I'll move on to the next question, but it is amazing that I really started identifying with my trauma. I went, what do you call it, through EMDR and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And that. But, I really didn't start identifying with that until I had for me, this is just for me, when I had 24 years in recovery, and my wife had to do an intervention because I slept so bad. And I would make, and she was like, man, you got to get some help. So, but and maybe we can do a whole show on like maybe we can have like a trauma panel and people in recovery that have dealt with that. And that would be cool to have you on there. So, but at your recovery, and I know a little bit about it, it's really cool. How did you had a pathway, you had a way that, so how did you get into recovery, and like, what did that look like for you, Marc?
Yeah, so like I said, I had tried traditional abstinence-based treatment about 13 times. That was the whole gamut of available care. So like detoxes, halfway houses, treatment centers, inpatient, outpatient, IOP. I mean, you name it, individual counsel. I had tried everything, and from the stuff that commercial insurance would pay for when I had, when I was insured under my parents when I was a kid, and all the way to the state funded, eating jail food at rehab type places, So I had tried that and nothing ever worked. I tried meetings, all that stuff, and I just was never able to maintain long-term recovery. So I'd get 30, 60 days, and then I'd go back out. And oftentimes, when I would start using again, things would become much, much worse, so it escalated, like the severity of my consequences escalated overnight sometimes, So so this time around, which was about 10 years ago, I finally gave this thing called medication-assisted treatment a try, which I had always been against. Like I had, here I was like a daily heroin user, and I was too good for buprenorphine or Suboxone, and so I had all these judgments and all these preconceived notions, and also that was before that was 2010, 2011. Is that right? Yeah, 2010, 2011. So
yeah, you've been around about 10 years.
Yeah, man. So next week, 2 weeks from now, it'll be 10 years. Yeah. So yeah, pretty cool. So anyway, so I didn't have any other options. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I needed help, and someone gave a business card to an addiction doctor, and so I just went. There was no, and I think this is something we don't think about sometimes, but like there was no motive, there was no reasoning behind the pathway I chose, other than this lived experience maybe, and like these failed attempts at other methods. But there was no like thinking on my part. It wasn't like I was making a Excel spreadsheet and Googling treatment options in my town and then looking at reviews and rate. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, hey, here's a place that might be able to help you. Try it out, and that was it. Like, so I didn't know anything about it. So
give it a shot.
Yeah. So I gave him a call, and sure enough, that's what I did. And it worked, man. And so like,
wow.
So Suboxone is a part of my story. And I can't say like I'm here today. I've done all these great things that I think are pretty great compared to the life I was living back then, and I've accomplished all these amazing things that I never would have dreamt of. Like I'm in graduate school. Meanwhile, I failed through high school, and like what I mean. Like I can finish. I can do these amazing things today, which we can all relate to. A lot of us, where I can like set my mind to do something and actually finish it. Like who would have thought? So things like that. So I can't complain, man. I'm a big advocate for Suboxone and methadone and Vivitrol and all these things. I just am an advocate for using evidence-based practices, researched, science to treat what I prefer to call a health disorder, a health problem. This isn't a criminal criminal problem. It's a health problem, and we should treat it as one.
It's also not a moral failing. And I want to say this for like the audience, and as we replay this and all that good stuff, I hope and people watch this, because it really is amazing to talk to you, man, because you have really made a difference in a lot of people's lives. You made a difference in my life, and I don't mind saying this. Like, before I met people like Marc Burrows, before I met people like Nate Tate, Nate, before I met people like Rich Jones, I've been doing recovery housing, recovery residences, a program, whatever, for like almost 10 years. Several years into that, I would have never, ever, because I'm just an old, 12-step. Yeah, really. I mean, kind of guy, and I didn't understand it, but the more that I got educated on it, and now, we have been working with medically assisted treatment now, I think, Marc, for a couple of years now, maybe going on 3 years. And you were a big part of that. It was just the education and And like you said,
well, thank you, man.
Yeah, and just, you know, and learning about that and opening up my eyes. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't mind saying this. I mean, you can come over to Freedom Recovery Center, and you don't know who's on Suboxone, or I don't know what they use, Subutex. I'll leave that for you guys, the guys that are much smarter. But you don't know who's on it and who's not. You really don't. When it's done correctly and ethically, and I know you stayed on it for a while, which is fine. I think, what, about 3 years?
No, I still take it to this day, dude.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I got off of it a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and but hey, that's a good point to your to what you were just saying, because you know, here I am on it, and you know, you didn't even know, so you know.
Isn't that amazing? You know, I tell people, you know, I'm on medically assisted treatment too. You know, if like I take blood pressure medicine, and if I didn't take that blood pressure medicine, my recovery wouldn't be worth a crap. So, like I've said that before, to people, I go, yeah, I'm taking medically assisted, and they their eyes kind of get big, like you're on yeah, I take blood pressure medicine, and I'm not like I wouldn't be worth a crap if I didn't take it. So like medication's a part of my recovery, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, and it is for most people, you know, like most Americans especially. So, what was I going to say? I was going to say that I had gotten off of it a couple years ago, and then I had a surgery. I had to have a medical. I had to have my gallbladder taken out.
Okay.
And I became stuck on these freaking pain meds after the surgery. There was no overusing or drug addiction behavior. You know, none of the lifestyle came back in my life, thank God. Yeah. But I could sense that it was right around the corner. And so I made the wise decision to get back on the medication that was there to help me, and so that's what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, and it was more of just kind of like, this is what's best for me, because I've had that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was working full time. Yeah. I was in school full time. Yeah. I had all these things going on in my life, these big things, and so, yeah, it's like, okay, so I'm about to jeopardize all of that with a monster relapse right around the corner. Yeah. You know, or I could use the help that's available. You know, it'd be crazy. It'd be like a diabetic person being like, nah, screw the insulin. Like, I'm okay. You know, like we just wouldn't do that, you know? So that's what I did. It was kind of a no-brainer, although I definitely was reluctant. I definitely struggled, and I definitely beat myself up about that decision, which is crazy, right? Because we shouldn't do that. It's like what was, you know, it's the natural thing to do. So, anyways, and listen, whatever's best for you, because I want to keep hanging out with you. Okay. There you, man. Yeah.
Hey, but listen, I do want to ask you this, because, you know, like coming back, like riding back and forth to Columbia, we talked about this, and we've had some conversations, and you talked about the barriers that you've had, you know, like after you tried to get back in recovery, and after you found your pathway, and after you found some things that worked for you, which was medically assisted treatment, that have given you this wonderful life today. What were some of the barriers, Marc, like getting jobs and stuff? You talked about that. What were some of the barriers of getting back in society? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I hope I can share about that, because sometimes I think about it, and it's a hard thing to put into words, or to really paint a good picture of it, but I will do my best. So you know, when you are like my situation, like I said, very reckless. I was not a bad person. I just was a young person strung out on heroin. And so what happens is you start to accumulate little misdemeanor crimes, petty crimes, right? Like a lot of it's DMV related, which we don't even talk about, but like
more like just petty shoplifting that kind of just
like I mean, really like simple drug possession, simple paraphernalia possession, You get pulled over. You get pulled over for speeding. You get pulled out of the car and searched, and you have a syringe in your pocket, or you have a bag of weed in your pocket, whatever. And so you get arrested, right? Your car gets impounded. Your car gets towed. Your license maybe gets suspended, right? Fines, lots of money, right? To get all these things back. Mm-hmm. And eventually you accumulate so many charges, you run out of get out of jail free cards with probation and whatnot, and you accumulate this criminal record. And so then you are told to go back into society and get a job, pay all these fines you've accumulated, try to get your driver's license back, try to get auto insurance, which is now more expensive because of this situation. And none of it's possible because you have a criminal record. And so what do you think that does to someone who's struggling to cope with negative emotions, or struggle to cope with life, which is oftentimes what we're dealing with in addiction, right? Like I'm using drugs to cope. I'm using drugs because I don't know how to cope effectively, like most people, right? So when I'm new into recovery and I'm facing all these barriers, it's probably going to make me, it's going to raise the likelihood that I go back to drug use, you know? And so you keep spiraling. You get sober, you hit a dead end, you get turned down, you go, and what would happen to me is I would do great in a job interview, and oftentimes they would hire me. In the meantime, for waiting for the background check to come back, I would get in there, I'd be working for a week, everything's great. The background check comes back, they say, sorry, Mark, we can't, our insurance won't allow you to work here because you didn't pass this background check. See you later. And so, oh my God, it would crush my dreams, oh my God, like, what am I going to do now? I'd go back to what I know the best, which was heroin, and I'd relapse. And that happened a million times over, years in a row. And so all of those negative consequences, I just remember thinking, like, there's got to be a better way. Like, why? I'm not a bad person. I'm not hurting anyone. I have a problem. I have an addiction. Why are you treating me like a criminal? And that's just what we do in this society. So that's how I came to know, like, drug policy reform and these ideas talking about legalization, decriminalization, drug diversion programs, like all of these things we can do to reduce the negative effects of that system,
Isn't it amazing that we take a kid that's been traumatized and we chunk them in jail so they can get traumatized some more?
Oh, yeah.
So basically, you were talking about the effects of the war on drugs on you, basically. But
right.
But hold on, it was really cool. So I was in I want to tell this story about, so I was in Marc's at Marc's house the other day, and I pulled up and I was like, man, he had gotten a nice new car there. Which is really cool. And it's like, and you told me, how it took so long, so long, and then you got a little $300, credit card, and you kept paying that. How hard it was for you to get a job, to find a job, because that thing kept happening to you. And I was like so happy to see that bad butt vehicle, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
sunroof,
beauty.
Yeah, man, brand new, and the guy runs your credit, and he's like, man, we got a special program for you because your credit's so good. And I just love hearing that. That was so cool to see. It just kind of like made my day.
Oh, awesome, man.
It did, man. I mean, I was a little bit jealous. I was like, man, what is that thing anyway? It's like the baddest Kia you can buy.
Yeah. It might just be. It's the new Kia. It's the new Kia Telluride. Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Well, this could be our first. This could be like our first. What is it? A sponsor, Kia.
Right.
Yeah. I mean it was, and because I knew a little bit about what you went through, and just like, man.
I mean, listen, man. When I got sober, I could not get a free checking account at a bank.
Exactly.
Like,
you were telling me about that.
Like I would walk into Bank of America or wherever, and because of my record, I had check fraud, and all these things, and I couldn't get a free checking account. So, yeah, man. I mean, let alone credit. Like a credit card, credit history, all that stuff was demolished, and. And but I will say this, and this is gets back to like the whole deal here is, if I didn't have help, like if I didn't have family resources, if I didn't have a family that could help me with these hurdles, like there's no way I would be where I am today. Or let me just say the chances would be significantly less. So every time I hit speed bumps like that, usually. There was some sort of assistance I could find, some sort of help from my parents or something that could get me through. I'm not saying my parents, they weren't like rich, they're not wealthy people, but like I had some sort of help, and so, but if you don't have that, if you're on your own, if you don't come from a supportive background like that, maybe like, I don't know. It's just very difficult, and there's obviously race involved in that too. I know that's a touchy subject, but I faced a lot of those, I don't know, I guess you just say obstacles that could have been prevented if we were doing things differently. Yeah. It doesn't have to, if our goal in criminalization and the war on drugs, if our goal, which I would like to think, and I think people would say it is, if our goal is to rehabilitate society and teach people a lesson, which is what they're trying, right? We're going to send you to jail, teach you a lesson, so you're not going to do it again. You'll fix your life, right? I mean, we want, like anyone in society wants productive society members, right? Productive citizens. That's right. We want taxpayers. We want people that work jobs and don't commit crimes, right? So, but if that is the goal, the way we are doing things is having the reverse effect. It's making that much harder to accomplish. Like you're taking people with struggles and really decreasing their chances that they're going to be a successful contributing society member. And so that's why I care about drug laws and the way we're treating people with addiction, because we like to say that it's a disease and a health disorder, but yet we throw people in jail and then make their lives extremely difficult to recover.
Yeah. And we got to keep running around with a bullhorn. Whatever we got to do. And it brings me to this, like, when I saw the picture of you, Todd put it up, the picture of you sitting there like on the trunk of your car. And I remember those days when Marc Burrows would go out by himself, with everybody telling you, hey, you can't do this. And I'm going to tell you something. That's another thing I love about you. And I think we really relate. Like you see a need. And you don't wait for like the state to fund you. You don't wait to form a committee. You don't wait to get votes. You don't wait to get like approvals. I think you and I are both like that in a sense. You're just like, I'm going to do it. And you started doing it. And lo and behold, look at it now, man. It's like, it's and it's our community bus, man, our community harm reduction bus. But like, I've got a question, like, what are the advantages of having harm reduction in a community? I know just understand, like, we've got a lot of times we've got a little audience that doesn't.
Sure.
But like, what are just some of the advantages of having harm reduction in a community?
Yeah, sure. So, and luckily we have, 35 plus years of research and evidence, 35 plus years of research, solid research backing up this intervention. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what it says statistically is that harm reduction services like syringe exchange, naloxone, fentanyl test strips, all these things, the foundation would be syringe service. It says that we can decrease rates of HIV, decrease rates of hepatitis C, decrease rates of overdose death. we can connect people to treatment and to other resources. So, one of the great statistics we love to throw around is that they're 5 times more likely to enter into treatment than people who aren't connected to a syringe exchange. So a lot of times there's this misconception that a syringe exchange increases needle litter found in the community. It actually decreases needle litter because programs like ours get these syringes off the street and dispose of them safely. In towns that have syringe exchanges, crime rates actually decrease because you're engaging these people with some sort of professional, whether it's a peer support specialist, a social worker, a nurse, whatever it is. And so we're able to connect these people to resources. And that might not be treatment. That might be housing or healthcare or employment or mental health, right? But these are individuals on the street that aren't being engaged. They're not working with a professional. So they're just out there doing whatever they're doing. Whereas a syringe exchange comes through, and now all of a sudden we can connect with them. And so that's a syringe service harm reduction 101.
101
in a nutshell.
But for me, I realize now that harm reduction saved my life because I was getting ready to get back in my car, and I was fully convinced that there was nothing left for me but to die, but to kill myself. And I was making a decision because I could tell everything was just kind of getting peaceful. Like, man, this is finally over. And as I was getting in my car, back then we didn't have harm reduction, but a guy said, "Hey, where are you going?" And he engaged with me. And I think, when we have somebody like a Marc Burrows engaging with or a Chris Stepp, engaging with people that have not been engaged, and that's the whole thing that just blows my mind. Why we don't have churches on every corner doing this, because you're engaging with people who have not been engaged with in a lot of times in years. And it had been a long time since someone said, "Hey, I want to walk in the meeting." And they walked in the meeting with me, and then somebody hugged me, and it was just that whole thing that happened that I was like. And then he said, "Yeah, I've been in recovery 3 years." And I thought, well, okay, this can work. So and I did like a segment about the heart of harm reduction. Yeah. There's the action of harm reduction. That's giving out naloxone. That's actually looking at somebody and saying, "I want you to live. I want you not to harm yourself." And then there's but there's that heart of harm reduction too, which is just like being there for them. It's something that I've really kind of like fallen in love with myself the more and more I hang out with you guys. But
Marc, Marc, that brings up a question.
Producer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in here.
No, it's cool. Jump in, Todd.
That brings up a question I had because Mike just said about it. He's like, I'm surprised, there should be more churches, doing this or et cetera. How much of what you face is actually stigma, whether that's the stigma that you alluded to earlier with MAT that you had for yourself, whether that would be stigma from the community? What is the needle exchange and what is it not? So, that's because for me, like, I don't know, I did not know much about it. And so, for me, I was a little, so like, how do you explain it in that terms of what is it, what isn't it, and how can we help with the stigma associated on both ends of it?
Sure. Okay. So it's, sometimes it's tricky to define because I don't want to scare people away, but you have to understand that in order for harm reduction to work, it has to be sincere in its mission. You can't, sometimes people want to do harm reduction. It has to be like, you have to be genuine in saying, "Hey, we're cool with we're fine with you doing drugs and doing what you want to do, but let's try to keep you safe in the meantime." Right. And that can be a tricky thing for people to swallow because you're saying, "Wait, what? You're encouraging drug use, or you're okay with them using drugs? I'm not okay with them using drugs." And maybe you're not, but harm reduction is like meeting people where they're at and coming at them with no judgment, 100% compassion, no stigma, And if you can do that, if you can somehow do that, it will pay you back dividends because that's where the magic happens. That's when we can engage. That's when we can work on other issues. But if I come at them and I'm like, hey, you really shouldn't be doing those drugs. Here's a needle, but you really, there's a better way, and recovery. If I do that, most likely that person's not going to want to continue engaging with me. So they might come once, they might get some supplies, but they're probably not going to come back, and they're probably not going to have a whole lot of trust in me because every time they see me, I'm trying to shove, recovery or whatever it is that we're trying to shove, right? So it's a little tricky sometimes because you have to kind of open yourself up to these other things that maybe you're not okay with, but harm reduction as a philosophy says, hey, we're okay with that, but we just want to help keep you safe in the meantime. So it has to be sincere, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then how much resistance do you get from the recovery community, and how much resistance do you get from law enforcement?
Well, it's funny because I think I might be like somewhat naive to as much resistance as we face because I don't know. I don't like see it in the recovery circles, and maybe it just goes right over my head. It's more in like systems, treatment centers, hospitals, governments, like there's pushback there. There's definitely pushback within community members, and Chris and I run into it all the time where we're trying to hand out just naloxone and somebody tells us that, oh, if it's their choice, if they decide to use, it's their they should die, right? Like they made the choice to get high, so they should die. I'm not going to save them, blah blah blah. We hear a lot of that, unfortunately, which is just ignorance, I think, and people don't know how to digest their own thoughts and beliefs and values and stuff. So it just feels foreign to them. So it's easier to say like, screw them, kick them to the curb, screw them. Like it's easier to say that than to open yourself up to like a compassionate way of helping someone. But so, I mean, we're in South Carolina. We were the first syringe exchange that the state saw back in 2017. And, so it was obviously like a foreign concept, and the idea of passing out needles can be kind of weird for some people to hear. But in my experience, once we're able to educate a little bit, speak a little bit more on our success or whatever, people, then it starts to click. Then people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I did want and to finish your question, law enforcement. We've had nothing but good experiences up here in the upstate with law enforcement.
Yeah.
We have had plenty of conversations on the street level with law enforcement, and they've all been very positive. They appreciate what we're doing. They understand that our work is keeping them safe. They say 1 in 3 police officers has a needle stick in their career. Syringe exchange can decrease that by 66%. So, we're educating our participants. We can have conversations like, hey, if you get pulled over by the cops, tell them, hey, I'm a member of a syringe exchange. I have some syringes in my pocket. They're right here. Here you go. Like there's ways for them to educate them and empower them so that they can better deal with law enforcement, and law enforcement is safer because of it. So that's been nothing but positive. Other parts of the state, I believe like Horry County, other places, we've got some more work to do on that front. So, but I wanted to like take you guys through a story real quick, if that's all right.
Go ahead, man.
All right. So when I was 18, 19 years old, I found out that I had contracted hepatitis C, right? Hepatitis C is a fatal disease. Actually, more people die today from hepatitis C than they do from HIV. Right. So it usually takes some time, 10 to 20 years maybe, to have its negative effects. Right. But nevertheless, it is a potentially fatal disease. So I'm 18, 19 years old. I find out I had hepatitis C. One of my friends who I used with went to jail. He was tested in jail, tested positive, and he called all of our friends from jail and told us, hey, you need to go get tested. So there's about 6 of us, right? We all go get tested. We're all positive, right? The whole group comes out positive. So for me, it was devastating to my life. I was very uneducated on Hep C. I didn't know anything about it. And it caused me major depression, major anxiety. It ruined relationships. I didn't know how to talk to girlfriends about it. I was super embarrassed in front of my family. You know, people were scared to like share drinks with me or share plates or silverware. You know, like here's this contagious monster. That's what I felt like, right? Even so much that if I was always aware in meetings when I used to go to 12-step meetings that if I had shared that part of my story, I was worried at the end of the meeting that the guy next to me wouldn't want to hold my hand for the Lord's Prayer or the Serenity Prayer because they would know I had hepatitis C and maybe didn't want to hold my hand. Like now, we know obviously that's crazy. Hepatitis C is not spread like that, right? It's only through blood, even through unprotected sex. Highly unlikely that it would be spread, right? But at the time, I didn't know that. And nevertheless, you never know how the other person feels. So maybe I know that, but maybe Mike doesn't know that. So he doesn't want to hold my hand in the Lord's Prayer or whatever we're doing, right? Yeah. So I'm just trying to express that it caused an extreme amount of destruction in my life. And I lived with it for 10 years, okay? The other part of that is every time you're sick with the common cold or the flu, you don't know if it's that or if it's your hepatitis C kicking in. You don't know if it's the cold or are you about to die because your hepatitis C just became elevated, right? It's a liver disease. So it's affected through different things. So you constantly have this paranoia of death and dying and embarrassment and all these things, right? Tons of negative consequences. All right, so fast forward 10 years, this amazing drug called Harvoni was invented, right? Which is a cure for hepatitis C. It has like almost 100% cure rate, right? It's a pill that you take for 8 to 12 weeks. Amazing, cures hepatitis C, right? That came out, like I said, 10 years or so after I had been diagnosed. Well, that medication is when it first came out, it was close to $100,000. That was the cost of that treatment. So I paid Cobra health insurance to maintain my health insurance at a job at that time. I was in recovery, $700 a month, so I could have health insurance that would pay for this Harvoni medication to save my life, right? So cost almost $100,000. Now it's down as low as $26,000 sometimes. I think still usually around $80,000, right? And so you got to remember, so if we just look at my story, right? I just want to paint this picture with my story, sure, in my little bubble. There were 5 other friends of mine that all had this disease, right? We know statistically that the average IV drug user passes hepatitis C to 20 other people. One IV drug user with hepatitis C, on average, spreads that Hep C to 20 other people through IV drug use, right? That's how it spreads, right? So if you take me and my 5 friends, right, and we say, okay, 6 people times 20, that's 120 people, right? Calculator, good math, okay? And let's say the average cost of that treatment was $80,000, right? Let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. Mine was closer to 100. So, hold on. Someone's already done the math in their head.
Never thought about this, man.
Yeah. So $9.6 million is what me and my 5 friends cost the healthcare system because we didn't have a syringe that cost 9 cents. That's what we're talking about with harm reduction.
And that leads me to what, like, there would be such an advantage to South Carolina, conservative South Carolina. If you, because it's for conservative folks, and I'm not trying to get political because man, I'm down the middle, okay? But like think about that. I mean, what if we could get them to understand
Right.
how much money this would save
Right.
taxpayers, that how much what of a lesser burden that this would be on the overall healthcare system. I mean, and that's what I was going to ask you. What are the advantages of passing a South Carolina syringe exchange? Well, heck, you just answered the question. I mean, it really is.
If you don't give a crap about drug users and you think they're scum and they should die, if you think that, but you want to save money, well, here's your chance, because 80 to 90% of treatment costs for HIV and hepatitis C in South Carolina, not nationally, but in South Carolina, are paid by taxpayer money, Medicaid, Medicare, and indigent taxpayers. Only 10 to 15%, I believe, don't have it in front of me, but 10 to 15% of these treatment costs are covered by commercial insurance.
Okay.
So you're already paying for it, is my point. You're already paying for HIV treatment, hepatitis C treatment, all these drug user related infections. You're already paying for it. So it's a matter of, would you rather pay millions or thousands, you know?
And we can, and which brings me and I feel like we're on the way to go fishing or something. This is what Marc Burrows and I do. Okay. But I have a dream, right? That we have this harm reduction, that we have these harm reduction services, and that we're meeting people where they are. And then when they look up and say, I need help, that we actually have somewhere to send them. But it is very hard to send them somewhere. Like right now, listen, and I love my folks at Phoenix Center, our county agency. They're wonderful people, but it's 2 or 3 weeks before we get them in to say an IOP program and help them get on their medication. But could you imagine, if we had a van sitting there and a guy says, you know what, man, I want to go somewhere right now. We can just shuttle him off could you, Marc?
Oh yeah.
Marc. And I mean, the money that anyway, but the thing is people like you and I and other people in recovery that have lived experience in this and that have seen the need and just gone and done it, getting all the naloxone that we've gotten out, and you've helped do this with recovery housing and hotels and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, anyway, I could go on and on about it. You could too, but I wanted to bring this up real quick, and I know I didn't know if you got this information, but Rhode Island, Rhode Island is gonna. I know you probably know about this. Is going to have. We talked about it earlier a few weeks ago, but they are going to have the first supervised injection site. And could you imagine if we had that all over the United States, and we had harm reduction, and then we actually had a way to treat people? Could you imagine what we could do? I mean, and we're going to keep dreaming, maybe not in our lifetime, but
we've looked into doing a safe consumption site, believe it or not, with Challanges Inc. Apparently there are explicit laws that prohibit that. So even though I'm all about skirting the law and stretching the, asking for forgiveness, that's how Challanges Inc. rolls. But on this one, we sent it to the attorneys and they were like, that's a hard no. You probably don't want to do that.
But that's what you and I do that though. I mean, we're just like, no. Somebody's like, we got to form a committee and we need to, and we're like, nah, people are dying. 90,000 people died in this country last year. What the hell are we forming committees and talking about? And all the, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started, dude.
Sometimes we just have to remind ourselves, if you want to do something, just do it. Just go do it.
Do it.
A lot of times it's funny, and every harm reductionist has heard this, but sometimes naloxone gets spit on, or whatever you want to say. Naloxone gets some crap because of because of the amount that we're giving out for free, right? And people don't realize, there you go. Well, Challanges Inc. IM kit.
That's That's the
over 12,000
Rebel Road getting it out, man. I remember you used to nail these to trees, man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Back in the day, man, Marc would go. He would go out in the woods, and I'd be like, I got to get to know that guy. That's my kind of guy right there. And I didn't really agree with it at the time. And you're like nailing it. And I'm like, but this guy is awesome. Yeah. And dude,
well, hey, just in my defense, they were in those kits were in childproof bottles, just so everyone knows.
I know.
But yeah, so I forgot my point. But I guess people knocking naloxone for giving it free. They thought it was taxpayer money, which it's not. We paid for it ourselves. Now we get it through a grant.
Yep.
It's not, So, but they would say, well, why don't diabetics get free insulin? I think they should get free insulin. Blah blah blah. And we would say, well, if you believe that strongly in them getting free insulin, go start a nonprofit. Go use your own money to buy some insulin and give it out to these. I mean, that's all we're doing. It's not more complicated than that. My point is just if you want to go do something, go do it.
That's exactly right. And I'm sorry, the producer.
I don't mean to cut in here.
Okay. But jump in, Todd.
Nicole Chris actually had a comment. So for those,
not her.
So for those that are actually listening to the podcast on the audio side. Mike was just holding up hey, J.R. Weaver. We got to get J.R. on the show, by the way. So I just saw a squirrel. We had the Facebook comments come up, for the viewers that are watching the live feed. So just in case you're any curiosity on what's going on, if it sounds like it's going off the tracks, that's what's going on there. But Nicole Chris actually had a comment that said, if anyone is unclear of the impact on a community of injection site can have, look up Insight on YouTube. It's a program in Canada that has a huge impact. Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there. I mean, I thought that was a pretty good point. Our good friend from Myrtle Beach, Nicole Chris. I mean, she's doing some amazing work out. We're gonna have her on the show too. But I had a question about the bus, but I do want to ask you this, Marc, as we kind of wrap up. What does Marc Burrows do professionally now? What do you do every day? I mean, how do you make a living, Marc?
Oh, well, it's definitely not through harm reduction. That does not pay the bills. But I had someone tell me once I was in this for the money, and I thought, man, you could not be more uneducated. So I run an MAT practice. It's called Carolina Wellness and Recovery of Powdersville. It's in Powdersville, South Carolina, just outside of Greenville. And we are an office-based opioid treatment program. We provide medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder. We provide rapid detox when appropriate. And and I will say we try the best I can to do that with a harm reduction approach. And we do harm reduction, syringe exchange and MAT under the same roof, which is a beautiful collaboration to think of all the stuff we just talked about, to have all that access right there readily available. So someone comes in for clean syringes, we give them that. Maybe we get them tested for HIV, Hep C. Maybe we get them treated for Hep C. And, oh, by the way, hey, if you're ready to stop and you're looking for recovery, we got that right here. So it's a beautiful, relationship. And that's how it can work on a bigger scale. So imagine something like the Phoenix Center or the health department or the hospital system. Like, these things can happen in larger scales, which is amazing. So, but anyways, that's what I do 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And I'm off at 1 on Fridays. So
you usually go fishing on Fridays.
Yeah, usually flicking the wand, Saturday morning.
But no, that is fantastic. I've been over to Marc's office, and it is a very comfortable setting, very laid back. You get to be counseled by somebody like Marc, and it's kind of wrapping up. What do you think? I mean, I know like you're living your dream, man. And I feel like I am too. I mean, like we're broke,
Right.
Right. I mean, but we're living, we're doing what we want to do. We're living our dream, and we're, what do you think the future holds for Marc Burrows?
Oh boy.
What do you think? I mean,
that's a big one. Well, all right, two things.
You're young. How old are you, man? You're in your 30s.
36. Yeah, 36.
See, you're young, man. We have these conversations.
Well, the gray hair, man. By New Year's, I'll be all gray. It's like flying. So, but I think the future for harm reduction, I would like to see a specific, a delicately woven law, a delicately woven piece of legislation that's written with all parties' inputs in a very informed manner that allows whole-scale health departments and hospitals and all large agencies to provide harm reduction, and small nonprofit groups like us to provide harm reduction, because we all do it in a different manner. The part where it gets concerning is when states implement these crazy requirements, restrictions. They say who can and can't do it. That's when it gets crazy. If you want to look at a good model for anyone listening, just do some research on the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition. They did a really good job at implementing their law. Yeah. And I would say they probably would say that there's things they could have done differently or improved, but they allowed it so that you have a health department operating a syringe program, and in the same town you have a little old nonprofit doing some community-based harm reduction. So that's what I would like, because there are rural areas to South Carolina. There's tons of people that need our services. We do mail-based. That's the room I'm sitting in. All these boxes is where I do all the mail-based syringe exchange for Challanges Inc. So every night my scale is right here, my tape, and I sit down and I package harm reduction kits and mail them across the state. And these are mostly to places that have no resources. There's nothing there, like Ware Shoals, South Carolina, or Buffalo, Union, like the middle of nowhere. Those weren't good examples, but the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. And so we need a broader reach. Unless somebody wants to fund us with a bunch of money and tell us to go do it, we need the state to implement something and open up the doors so that we can receive federal funding. Because right now we receive zero government dollars. It's all personal, private donations and grant money from like small foundations that exist solely to help us.
The Clinton Foundation, Recovery Advocate, the last, with what we've done with recovery housing and housing in general, and just, I mean, a lot of that came from Clinton Foundation, Recovery Advocacy Project, Ryan Hampton, shout out to him. It was really an effort all the way across the board, developing the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association just so we could bring harm reduction in and, stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's harm reduction specific foundations out there as well, like the Open Society Foundation, the Comer Family Foundation, NASN, the North American Syringe Exchange Network. So there's but that's all that money goes to supplies. We're all volunteer based. So we just need more funding, but we need to craft that legislation very carefully, and they need our input. They need people who have used drugs, people with lived experience, harm reductionists. They need all of our input to help create those laws together. And then finally, I was just going to say that something I really enjoy thinking about when I think about the future is the amazing group of addiction professionals we have here in South Carolina. I think of people, I mean, like you said, I'm 36 years old. I hope to have a long career in this field. And I loved the idea of, I was just telling Chris the other day, I've told Michael before, Michael Crouch, I love the idea of thinking about all of our network, Nicole in Myrtle Beach, yourself, Chris, Michael, Nate Tate, Mike Malone. I love, all these people. I love to think, imagine like 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, Chris was laughing saying he would be 70 years old at that point. and I was telling him he'd still be putting syringes in his mailbox for people to come pick up.
Probably will.
But
that's what he does too.
Yeah. So that's what I like thinking about for the future is the amazing group of professionals that we have here in the community. And it's only going to get better from here. We're only growing and evolving and learning new skills. And I mean, the sky's the limit, man. Who knows? Who knows what we'll create and open someday in the future. So
we're a passionate group of people, and yeah, Todd.
So I just wanted to throw in there, just as we are winding down, that for anyone that wants to know about the locations of the harm reduction bus here in South Carolina, or if anyone wants to donate to Challanges Inc., you can go to www.challangesinc.com or org.
Yeah.
And you can actually, you can find out more about their program there. You can also donate and help out. Obviously, with this being, you reminded me of something there, Mark, so the Chris Atwood Foundation, which is in Virginia, they do the same thing. They actually mail out naloxone. So they have a sign-up sheet. It's like a Google form that you fill out. And so
cool.
Actually, maybe we could talk later on about that as well. But
sure.
I know that those little initiatives make a difference. But I just wanted to cover that end of it. Just for for anyone who wants to know more about the organization, they can find the weekly schedule on Facebook on the Challanges Inc. Facebook page, as well as go onto their website www.challangesinc.org, and you can donate to help out because gas is not cheap. And that's a bus they're rolling around, so you can.
And we
definitely
think it needs a battery right now.
Yeah. That's the next pit stop going to AutoZone. We need a battery.
I don't know what a battery's going to cost for that, but But as we wrap up too, I want to just real quick, just want to thank Todd, our producer, Todd Widows, and his wife Kelly, and for doing this for our community, doing this awesome podcast so that we can talk and really highlight people like Marc Burrows and Nicole Chris and J.R. Weaver and all these people. And you mentioned Michael Crouch and just all these people. I want to, what we want to build a platform. We want to build a platform for all of these people to be heard. And you talked about legislation. They're not going to have us on the news and all these talk. So we're going to build our own dadgum platform, and we're going to do it. And I just want to send a heartfelt thank you out to Todd and his wife, for doing this, man. We're sitting in his garage, they parked maybe we can find it. But he's got this really cool studio set up here. But, she parks outside. We use the garage. And so, Todd, thank you, man. We love you. And Mark, we love you too, very much. And I'm so proud to call you my friend. And I'm looking forward to working on my side of Greenville with the harm reduction bus. Of course, it's on Thursday night. I'll be here, but
Chris is out there right now. Yeah.
New Life Church over there, guys. We're gonna be doing some stuff with them. A Baptist church in Greenville, South Carolina, stepping up. Pastor Jerry. We're going to have him on the show, and Jessica. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in the Recovery First podcast, and we'll see you next week. Take us out, Todd.
So 30 years ago, when I first came into recovery, we didn't have recovery housing. If someone was seeking recovery and maybe coming to meetings and didn't have anywhere to live, we'd basically try to help them find somewhere to live. And that's how it all started. We all started basically living together and keeping each other accountable in recovery. Now, as the years have gone through, it's basically turned into an industry. And with that industry, there comes a lot of challenges. There's quite a bit of exploitation. You're dealing with a very, very vulnerable population. So that's the reason that we started the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association, to help providers, to help other recovery housing operators to help mentor them, to help to advocate for them. And one of the things that we did right off the bat was we started getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina. We were very fortunate to get a grant from the Clinton Foundation and some help from the Recovery Advocacy Project and Challanges Inc. and Favor Greenville, and all of them combined have helped the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association to begin getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina and to help train their residents on the use of naloxone. We believe that is the first standard that we need to accomplish in South Carolina. Recovery housing operators are a very valuable resource to those suffering from substance use disorder in South Carolina, and we want to advocate for them, train them, mentor, and just work with them with whatever needs that they may have. If you want to get in touch with us, it's screcoveryhousing.org.